This meeting will now come to order. In an effort to prevent the spread of novel coronavirus COVID-19, this meeting is being conducted by video teleconference. We welcome those of you joining us via the meeting portal and hope that everyone is safe and healthy. I will now read the EPSB mission statement. The Education Professional Standards Board, in full collaboration and cooperation with its education partners, promotes high levels of student achievement by establishing and enforcing rigorous professional standards for preparation, certification, and responsible and ethical behavior of all professional educators in Kentucky. Sharon Chesser joins us today as Board Secretary. Ms. Chesser, thank you for joining us. Please call the roll.
Good morning. Amanda Ellis.
Amanda Ellis, present.
Susan Reber.
Susan Reber, present.
Diane Berry.
Diane Berry, present.
Elijah Edwards. Kathy Gunn. Tracy Hunt. Jacqueline Mayfield.
Jacqueline Mayfield, present.
Meredith Pittman. Sherry Powers.
Sherry Powers, present.
Amber Snell. Amber Snell. Carmen Souter.
Carmen Souter, present.
Wade Stanfield. Julian Vasquez Holly.
Julian Vasquez Holly, present.
Sarah Weedman.
Sarah Weedman, present.
Timothy Wooster.
Timothy Wooster, present.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, present.
We have quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Chesser. Written public comments were received prior to today's meeting. A copy of those comments was emailed to members on Friday. At this time, I'd like to pause and give the members time to review those comments. Well, I'm sure unless you're a speed reader, you didn't get through all of it here, but hopefully it was a good refresher and you've already read those comments on Friday. But this should be a good refresher for us. We will now move to the consent item. The following item is listed on the agenda as a consent item. Approval of February 14th, 2022 EPSB meeting minutes. Does anyone wish to remove the item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Having received no request to remove from the consent agenda, can I have a motion to approve consent item A?
Amber Snell, I make a motion to approve consent item A.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. Do I have a second?
Jacqueline Mayfield, I second.
Thank you, Ms. Mayfeld. The motion before the board is to approve consent item A. As this meeting is being conducted via video teleconference, we will have a roll call vote for each vote. Ms. Chesser will call the roll. I would like to remind each board member to please state their name, pause for a moment, and then state their vote. Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry? Yes.
Amanda Ellis,
Amanda Ellis, yes.
Jacqueline Mayfield,
Jacqueline Mayfield? Yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Sherry Powers,
Sherry Powers, yes.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Carmen Souter,
Carmen Souter? Yes.
Julian Vasquez Halig,
Julian Vasquez Heilig, yes.
Sarah Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, yes.
Timothy Wooster, Timothy Wooster,
Timothy Wooster, yes.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Chesser, and the motion passes. Today, Commissioner of Education and Chief Learner Jason Glass joins us as Executive Secretary to the EPSB. I will now recognize Commissioner Glass to provide his report.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. Good morning, members of the EPSB. It's great to see all of you electronically. I know you've got a busy agenda. I'll do my best to move quickly. I will update you just briefly on the legislative session and where we are with it. The legislature has been in recess for the past few days. While some bills have been sent to the governor's office, he has signed some. He is allowing some to become law without his signature, and he is vetoing some. The legislature will come back into session this week, ostensibly for the purpose of overriding some of the vetoes that Governor Beshear has put forth. Some of the high-level bills that I will update you on include the budget bill. The budget bill was a good year for education, K-12, and for higher education in the state, so we're thankful for that. Some of the highlights of that budget bill as it relates to K-12 education include funding for full-day kindergarten, a continuation of that, the restoration of transportation funding, not at 100%, but certainly at a much higher level than we have seen in previous years, and an increase to SEEK funding. So those are three positive elements that were in the budget. One contentious element that was part of the budget was there is no requirement that school districts provide any set amount of increase to staff that work in the districts. And so those decisions will be deferred to local school boards to make. So I expect as budgets are prepared for next year at the local level, there will be lots of conversations around what's the appropriate increases to make on staff salaries. But the legislature decided to leave those decisions to the local school districts to make. A few policy bills to cover. One of those is Senate Bill 1. Senate Bill 1 started out as a shift to site-based decision-making councils, moving the authority to set curricula away from the SBDMs and the decisions around the appointment of principals away from SBDMs and moving those to school boards or superintendents. This has been a contentious shift. It's also been something that the superintendents have been pushing for several years. Grafted onto this bill was Senator Wise's Teaching American Principles bill, which was ostensibly a critical race theory focused bill. In my professional judgment, is a far better bill than the ones that we saw in the House. That doesn't mean that I was supportive of it or that it's a perfect bill, but it doesn't do some of the things that the House bill did around creating specific punishments for educators or banning certain things as topics of conversation. It does bring forth and say that there are a number of different elements that are rooted in foundational American documents that have to be taught and covered, and then it identifies 24 key original source documents that need to be covered in the course of a student's education. So those things were grafted together into Senate Bill 1. That passed both chambers. The governor has vetoed that, and so that'll be one of those bills that is expected that the legislature will consider overriding that, and in all likelihood they will. The other highly contentious or closely watched policy bill was House Bill 9, the charter school bill. Kentucky has had a charter school bill since 2017, so this is building on and extending that. Some of the key changes it makes, it attempts to address the funding problem that the 2017 bill had, and probably the biggest reason that you don't have charter schools in Kentucky is that from the 2017 bill, it was not clear how charter schools would receive access to local funds. And so this attempts to correct that by directing the school district to transfer the local funds. We at the Kentucky Department of Education think that that will create a constitutional problem the first time that this law forces a local school board to transfer its funds over the objections of that local board. So we're not sure that that's constitutional, and the courts will ultimately have to solve that. It also creates different authorization systems for Jefferson County, Louisville, and for Northern Kentucky. It directs them to start pilot projects, and those provisions don't appear elsewhere in the state. And it creates a different authorization process for districts that are larger than 7,500 students. We also think that those elements may be challenged on a constitutional basis as well. We advise the legislature of those concerns, as well as several other concerns or protections that don't appear in the bill around making sure that charter schools, if they open and operate in the state, are really open and accessible by all students, and that charter schools have access to some key funding, such as startup funds and construction funds. Those things aren't addressed. So I think this bill is still problematic. It attempts to solve some problems from the original 2017 law. I think those will be litigated to ultimately determine if the legislature was successful in solving those issues. And in my judgment, it creates some new problems. And so we'll see how this works out. This also was vetoed by Governor Beshear, and it's also something that is highly likely that the legislature will overturn that veto. Although it was a very close vote on the first pass through, it's likely to be a very close vote on the second pass through. But we'll see what happens in the veto override period. One other bill that I'll just update you on that we were supportive of at the Kentucky Department of Education, that's Senate Bill 9, the Read to Succeed bill. Read to Succeed bill really attempts to get at Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports for reading instruction in the state. Of course, Kentucky's had the Read to Achieve Act for a number of years, and dollars have been sent through the Read to Achieve Act to school districts for a number of years. School districts mostly have used those dollars for reading interventionists, and so we would tend to classify those expenses as Tier 3. So they're used for students once you get a problem with reading or a student is behind, then you bring in a reading interventionist to help support that. Occasionally Tier 2, but a lot of Tier 3 work with reading interventionists. So a fundamental structural problem that we felt was in Kentucky's approach to reading from a statewide policy standpoint was there were not a lot of supports for Tier 1 and Tier 2. So that's why Senate Bill 9, the Read to Succeed bill, was put forth. It doesn't adjust or make changes to the existing reading program, but it does provide additional resources and supports around Tier 1 and Tier 2. And so we're excited about that and appreciate Representative Tipton and Senator West that were champions of that bill and have been working on it for the past few years. Shifting gears, The large statewide vision effort that's underway is called United We Learn. That was a report that was issued in October of last year, and we continue forward following the ideas and concepts that were set forth in that document then. United We Learn was a vision created by Kentuckians, and it's intended as a future idea of what Kentuckians would like to see happen with their schools and for their students. The three big ideas contained in United We Learn are changes to the student experience in ways that prepare them for fast-moving, globally interconnected, automated future. And so that's really the heart of the work, is changing the student experience in meaningful ways. Other elements that are part of United We Learn are around innovation, with a focus on changes to assessment and accountability. And there really was a feeling among those individuals that took part in the listening tours and in the creation of United We Learn that our assessment accountability systems had been barriers to some of the kind of learning experiences that we'd like to see come about. And so they're asking for changes to that, really to make a more well-rounded and human assessment and accountability system, and something that's rooted in the values of communities. And then finally, the last element that I'll hold up out of United We Learn is this real desire around co-creation, and the notion that our communities and different voices in the state want to be at the table as future decisions are made around education policy and where we go as a state. So those three big ideas, dramatically changing the student experience, innovation, particularly around assessment and accountability, and this idea of co-creation with voices in our communities that always haven't been at the table when education policy decisions were made, are the three big concepts. We have some efforts underway right now related to that. The first is our local laboratories of learning, or L3. We now have 3 cohorts of districts that are operating in that L3 space, and they are taking aspects of that United We Learn report and breaking it down and thinking about how can we implement this at a local level. And then they share their learnings across communities. So a lot of focus on redesigning assessment and accountability systems, involving communities, changing student experiences, and then the sharing of those ideas locally. What we hope to do with that from the state level is have those 3 groups that are or 3 cohorts that are operating simultaneously, but a little bit delayed from each other, build on each other and learn from each other, and then we think about what elements of that we could scale statewide or bring to scale across the state of Kentucky. So that's exciting. Also related to United We Learn, we have issued contracts with our co-ops around the state through some of our COVID relief money to create a network and support system around deeper learning across the state. So we're excited that that's now getting started and getting going. And we have a statewide contract, some of the KDE set-aside dollars that we had with COVID relief funds. We've entered into a contract with PBL Works to provide free trainings across the state around problem and project-based learning. Ultimately, we hope that we can get around a third of the teachers in the state trained around that. And of course, PBL Works is an exceptional provider of that training. I'll stop there. That concludes my update, and I will recognize Susan Reber, who's here with the Education, Workforce, and Labor Cabinet to provide an update from the Cabinet. Susan.
Thank you, Dr. Glass. I really appreciate that. I am not going to add too much. I think you covered our concerns as we are moving forward through the legislature. We're almost there. Obviously, we have great concerns with House Bill 9, the charter schools legislation, but we are awaiting final decision making at the end of the week by the legislature, and we will move forward from there. That is really all there is for me. We have been up to our eyeballs in the legislature, as I'm sure most of you have as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Susan. And now we'll recognize Amanda Ellis from the Council on Post-Secondary Education. Dr. Ellis.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. So the only add-on that we would have as far as legislature is it's been busy, but we are grateful for the budget that was very education friendly. And as Dr. Glass had mentioned, that included higher education. So we are very grateful for those opportunities. I will give you just a couple of quick updates. Today and tomorrow, our Student Success Collaborative is hosting a Student Success Summit in Louisville. There is a focus on innovation innovation through collaboration. So you hear some common themes, which is really encouraging to me, between K-12 and even what higher ed's really focusing in on around collaboration, being innovative, and really moving forward in a better way and in great strides as we move out of COVID and into how we really re-engage folks and do it better than what we did before COVID. And so there's we're gonna have lots of great speakers, but we're focusing in on the Kentucky Graduate Profile Academy, Kentucky First, Purpose First, which is specific advising and support around students so they do succeed and complete. We also, as I mentioned in the last time we met, we had an RFP out at that time for summer bridge programs. So happy to announce that we have granted 29 grants, and that represents, I believe, 25 institutions. We are so grateful and excited for this work. We'll be convening with these folks a couple of times throughout the year to learn, address challenges, and really think about how these practices around Summer Bridge, addressing summer melt, and wraparound supports for all students, or an opportunity for all students to come in and really engage as they make this incredibly sometimes difficult transition into post-secondary. So stay tuned on that, but we are really excited. That included our 2-year and 4-year institutions, public and private. So we're really grateful to be able to be very inclusive on that across the state. The other quick update is our Higher Ed Matters campaign is running, going very well. We're getting ready to begin a podcast, but we've had great interest, lots of advertisement. They've put on KSR and different social media outlets just to bring to light the importance of higher education and the opportunities that lie with those. And our Kentucky Advising Academy is about to fully kick off in May with podcasts and opportunities for K-12 staff, not just counselors, to learn and be more aware of advising opportunities and really how to talk with students about college and career options. They are given a lot to handle. It's not just the job of the counselor, and it can't just be something we all stop, drop, and do, but it's a culture. It's a discussion of just futures. And so we're really excited about that work. Our continuum met in March and have really started to deeper dive into the data around Kentucky, specific to 9th grade on track and advising students early and often, not waiting till the senior year. Also looking at revamping our dual credit policy. So be looking for opportunities where we plan to have students, families, teachers, administrators, higher ed staff to really talk about how we can revise to be more inclusive, provide more opportunities and access, and to really talk about quality as well. We want it to count. We want their credits to count. We want their investment to be meaningful for students and their families. And so we're getting ready to deep dive into that. So the continuum is moving along. Really happy to tell you that Chair Mitchell will be representing EPSB, and we talked briefly right before spring break, so he's going to be getting emails from me that's dumping some information on him, but I'm really grateful for his insight. Of course, having a practitioner's view is really important, but also your voice as EPSB, really important to have that. So those are some of the quick highlights I have. I'll include anything that you may need, but thank you for the time. So Dr. Glass, I think I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. It looks like Dean Vasquez-Hallig has a question or a comment. Dr. Vasquez-Hallig, go right ahead.
Yeah, I heard that there was going to be some resources to CPE for some of the healthcare shortages. Did that come to fruition? Did it have a fancy name that I didn't recognize, et cetera?
Yes, so they did have the funding, Dean Heilig, but I do not have the exact details on that, but we did get funding for that. We do know, and I can dig a little deeper. I'll be completely transparent and tell you I was on spring break with my daughter last week, so I have about 100 emails I have not read that has complete passage and all the details, and I'd be happy to follow up with you and the council on those details.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis.
My pleasure.
And, now I'll recognize Dr. Byron Darnell, Associate Commissioner of the Office of Educator Licensure and Evaluation, to provide an update from OELE and the EPSB. So Dr. Darnell.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It's good to be here with this Brain Trust. Certainly an impressive group to meet with. So just want to lead, most importantly, with gratitude for the staff of OELE that make everything happen and keep everything up to date and really just work from a customer service mindset. So give appreciation to all that they do to make sure we're serving the teacher workforce, as well as the legal staff that obviously are intertwined with the work that we do in these meetings. And there's just a lot behind the scenes that has to take place before we ever get to this point, as we all know. Also, just thank you to Cassie Trueblood for piloting our meetings and getting everything ready and making sure we all are cued in on where we need to go throughout the meeting. So also want to give a congratulations to Chair Mitchell for his first official meeting as the board chair. So the good news, Chair Mitchell, is this comes with a substantial raise. So I just I know you're thrilled to death with that part of it. So tongue in cheek, though, I say that because each and every one of you is here of your own volition and your dedication to this process. So I thank you because I realize that this is not the easiest thing for a lot of you to work into your schedule. So lead with the level of appreciation, and I cannot stress that enough. Just a few things that I will add because I know it's getting talked at is not the easiest thing for minds to stay focused. Just a few quick points. Have talked with Chair Mitchell as well as Ms. Trueblood, and we've had conversations, and I mentioned at the last meeting just perhaps about the opportunity to revisit the goals, and particularly the goals for the EPSB. They have not really been revised and or addressed for a good period of time now, and I know it would be extremely helpful for me as far as just making sure that I'm providing the level of detail and direction that you all expect. So this is probably near impossible, but perhaps the opportunity to have a retreat at some point during the summer. I know that's probably not what everybody wants to hear. I would love if we could somehow get together in person because we meet by a screen and we haven't had that opportunity. Again, I know that's a lot to piece together, but I just want to put that out there, and we'll continue to maybe put some opportunities before you between now, obviously, in the next few weeks, just to see what we can come up with. Also, just want to say Chair Mitchell, Cassie Trueblood, and I had a conversation with Board Chair Young, Dr. Glass, Dr. Robinson, Dr. Brewer, and I believe Ms. Ball. It was just a collaborative conversation as we move into the transition with Chair Mitchell, and just grateful for the opportunity to just have a conversation about all things teacher education, teacher recruitment. And that also led us to connecting with the Commonwealth Education Continuum as well, which is another effort focused on tying all these pieces together. So getting engaged with that will be extremely important. As Dr. Ellis mentioned, roping in Chair Mitchell on the work. And so this is just a really good opportunity for us, and we need to engage in this as well. Also, just want to say thanks to institutions and schools that have invited me to come visit, have a conversation, speak with candidates and students and teachers. It has just really been gratifying to get to be out in person meeting and just most importantly listening and gathering feedback. So we'll continue to do that and fully open to anyone here on the board. If I can be in person and be of any assistance, please let me know. Also exciting to note that the National Board for Certified Teachers, we have an early entry pilot program that was chosen through the open application for ESSER funds. And this is going to provide the opportunity for 100 teachers in years 1 through 3 to obtain or seek National Board certification. So this is the first go for national boards to work with educators that are 3 years or under. Most cases, they have to have at least 3 years as the standard is set to seek national board. This is going to work with early entry teachers. So everything will be moving in this direction, and just a little FYI for you all out there, and excited about this opportunity to partner with them. Finally, Dr. Glass said a lot about the legislative update. Just a couple quick notes here. The Senate Bill 9 for early literacy education that was mentioned, the Read to Succeed initiative that will be taking place. This bill is an emergency bill, so therefore it became effective upon the governor's signature. And then Section 3 of the bill creates a new section, and that's going to require specific evidence-based reading instructional programming for post-secondary institutions offering teacher preparation programs for interdisciplinary early childhood and early education. That will start with the 22-23 school year. So this section is going to require that by January 1st of 2024, the EPSB shall develop and maintain a list of approved teacher preparation tests that are determined by the board to be an effective evaluation of reading instruction, knowledge, and skills. Then beginning in 24-25 school year, all new teachers seeking certification in IECE or elementary education shall successfully pass an approved teacher preparation test that includes an evaluation of reading, instructional knowledge, and skills. So the EPSB shall also report program data to an external evaluator for analysis of post-secondary teacher preparation programs for IECE or elementary education. So certainly this is going to take effect currently, and something that we'll be working on to bring to the board and keep you abreast of what is happening with that bill. Also, House Bill 277 was signed by the governor. This does not have an emergency clause to it, and it will become effective in July. This is the bill that creates the option 9 alternative route to certification. That's probably what we've heard the most. It calls for an expedited certification of a person through a cooperative program. Specifically with the approval of the EPSB, a college or university may partner with a school district to develop an expedited certification program that results in a bachelor's degree and initial certification within 3 school years. So this route does require a paraprofessional residency component. And then Section 2 of the bill also provides that any person who was issued emergency certification for the current school year is eligible to renew that certification for the 22-23 school year. So there's a lot that needs to be fleshed out there, but both House Bill 277 and Senate Bill 9 will require action from EPSB. We are currently reviewing the legislation. It's certainly hot off the press. And for Senate Bill 9, we will be working with ETS and exploring certification exams that meet the requirements for the bill. And then for House Bill 277, staff, we've already met with around the proposed route and also reviewing similar routes in other states and how that's transpired. We will continue to gather information, and we'll work with Chair Mitchell to bring these items before PSB at a future meeting. There's just one more bill, House Bill 283, related to student teacher background checks. So this bill was also signed by the governor, going to effect in July. It amends KRS 160380 to permit a school district to accept a background check completed by an accredited teacher education institution for a student teacher. And I think that's all I have for you today. So I appreciate your attention and time. Thank you all.
I have a question. Is this a good time?
Sure.
For the option 9 and the expedited training, did that bill include any resources for colleges and universities to run the summer classes, run the intersession classes? Because there's a certain amount of cost that's already baked into teacher preparation, because faculty and instructors are teaching fall, they're teaching spring. Are there any resources in there for us to be able to hire folks to do those in an expedited fashion?
I wish I could say yes, but unfortunately the answer is no. Duly noted and certainly recognized, but unfortunately they did not provide that within the construct of the bill.
Can I ask one other question?
Sure.
There were several bills about teacher loan forgiveness for commitments to districts, to address the teacher shortage. One of the things that I saw in those bills was that if we were able to offer a $32,000 scholarship, which essentially is what it would work out to, that we would be able to address the teacher shortage quite rapidly. Did any of those teacher loan forgiveness bills make it through the legislature?
No, they did not. Certainly, the loan forgiveness opportunities that exist currently, but again, with disappointment, none of those made it across the finish line.
I think Ms. Weedman has a question as well.
Hey, Ms. Weedman.
Hi, how are you?
Great, thanks.
Quickly, with the testing for I guess teacher certification, is there any written context or I guess definition of this testing process? I guess I am just curious how, when it comes to especially like teaching reading on a primary level, how taking a standardized test where you circle an A, B, C, D answer is going to relate to your ability to teach reading, especially like, it's all, I guess I'm just confused on what they are expecting. Is there any workaround with that language? Are we able to do something that'd be more performance-based or competency-based with this testing requirement?
No, and you bring up an excellent point, and I'm sure it's one that many are kind of struggling to make the connection with, and especially as this board certainly talking about just what is a gateway, what is a barrier. We're constantly sort of working through that as well. As far as do we have any ability to offer an alternative, the issue becomes that it's been baked into the statute. So looking at that will be sort of the work that we need to do to see. So, for example, and something that we'll work to talk about with the board, perhaps in future, is what would performance-based assessments look like? What are options for that as just a route to? So there's still just a lot, since it's brand new, a lot to sort of discern legally, but it duly noted and understood in that. And then, of course, that brings the debate also for our university partners and engaging in dialogue around this expectation as well. So there will be a lot of conversation to be had regarding the new requirement and what that's going to look like when it's in action. And no, you bring up an excellent point, though, and I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Darnell. And I believe at this time we're moving on to nominations and election of the vice chair. So I know it's something that you all have been waiting for. The vice chair of the EPSB is responsible to carry out the duties of the chair in his absence and to assist the chair as necessary. Today, the board will need to elect a vice chair. Is there a nomination for vice chair? Well, not everyone at once, but is there anybody that would like to nominate someone or would like to nominate themselves?
I have not spoken to this person prior to this meeting, so I may completely catch them off guard. But I think Miss Sarah Weedman would make an amazing vice chair.
Do you accept that nomination, Ms. Weedman?
I will accept it.
Okay. All right. So Sarah Weedman is nominated for vice chair. Are there any further nominations? Hearing none, the nominations are now closed. Is there a motion to approve the slate and elect Sarah Weedman as vice chair of the EPSB?
Jacqueline Mayfield, I make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Mayfield. Is there a second?
Amber Snell, second.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. The motion before the board is for Sarah Weedman to serve as vice chair. The members will now vote on this nomination. Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, accept.
Amanda Ellis,
Amanda Ellis, yes.
and Jacqueline Mayfield,
Jacqueline Mayfield, yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Sherry Powers,
Sherry Powers, yes.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Carmen Souter,
Carmen Souter, yes.
Julian Vasquez Heilig,
Julian Vasquez Heilig, yes.
Sarah Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, recuse.
Timothy Wooster,
Timothy Wooster, yes.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Chester. Please join me in congratulating Sarah Weedman as our new vice chair for EPSB. So I'm excited to have someone along with that we can work together and share these responsibilities along with the board. Moving on to the Accreditation Audit Committee appointments. The recent revisions to 16 KAR 5010 amended the makeup of the Accreditation Audit Committee. This committee reviews the accreditation materials for educator preparation providers and prepares a recommendation for EPSB with respect to the accreditation of the institution as well as the approval of individual programs. Under the revisions to the regulation, the committee is comprised of 1 lay member, 2 classroom teachers, 4 EPP representatives, and 1 school administrator. Brandy Fagan of the Williamstown School District is appointed as the school administrator representative. Veronica Russell of Christian County Schools is appointed as a teacher representative. Danny Bradley is appointed as the layperson representative. Jenny Bay Williams of the University of Louisville, Susan Kesey of Western Kentucky University, Tiffany Wheeler of Transylvania University, and Faye Detters of Eastern Kentucky University are appointed as the EPP representatives. Dr. Detters shall also continue to her appointment as chair of the committee. Please join me in thanking these committee members for their willingness to serve. Thank you all. And then just for other updates, I just want to sort of ditto what Dr. Darnell mentioned in his report about thanking all of the staff of EPSB and in the office for just making this process run smoothly. I know as a new chair, I'm trying my best to get up to date of everything I need to do to make sure that I am leading in a manner that is worthy of your respect. So I'm hoping that I can continue to do that. And I'm hopeful that this summer that we might be able to come together and do a retreat. I think that would be good to relook at those goals since I think they've not been at least examined by EPSB since 2018. And I know we have a fairly new board overall. And so really just to get to see you all face to face, get to work with you, and really just sort of set what our goals and vision looking forward for the EPSB. So that is my report. Today we have one information item. This item is presented to the board for review and discussion only and is presented by Cassie Trueblood.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So information item A,
This is your only information item today, and it can be found on page 27 of your agenda book. And this is a draft regulation for the Option 7 Alternative Route to Certification Institute. Currently, the requirements for this route are contained in statute and the EPSB guidelines, which Dr. Darnell will be presenting shortly. But KRS 161048 is the statute that sets forth the alternative routes, and it grants the EPSB the authority to promulgate administrative regulations establishing the standards and procedures for the alternative certification options. This proposed administrative regulation would establish those standards and procedures for Option 7. The draft regulation incorporates the recommendations of the Option 7 Task Force and incorporates the guidelines for submitting an application to provide an alternative route to Certification Institute. The regulation, which is also contained in your materials, has sections covering institute providers, the application review, continuance of program approval, revocation for cause, appeals process, data reports, as well as temporary provisional and professional certification. In drafting those sections, the language was adapted from regulations on the other alternative routes, as well as the program review portion of 16 KAR 5010. At this time, this is for you simply for information and discussion. So if you have any questions, anything specific that you would like to review in the regulation, please let me know. After this meeting, staff also plans to circulate the regulation among the Option 7 Task Force members to get additional feedback before this is brought before you for action. If there are no questions at this time, there is one section that I would like to go ahead and draw your attention to. Specifically, this is going to come at the end of section 2, and it's going to be on page 30 of your agenda book, getting down to starting at line 20. And this is talking about the approval granted by the EPSB. Right now, it leaves that approval time open so that the board could approve for any amount of time under 7 years. 7 years is kind of keeping in track with the other program approvals of the EPSB, where they have to be reviewed every 7 years by the board to have that continued approval. So this would keep that, but also it leaves open for that initial approval because one of the things that was talked about, I believe, in the board meetings as well as in the Option 7 Task Force was these brand new programs that are coming before you, allowing them to be approved initially for a smaller period of time, whether it be 1 school year, 2 school years, to go ahead and get that operation to actually get the data, those measures of efficacy to present to the board before continuing for potentially that full 7 years. Right now, the way that the language is written in that section is it leaves it up to the board. So you could make that decision at the time that you're reviewing the programs. We also have the ability, if you would prefer, to set that to specify it a little more, that for initial programs, the board would only approve for 2 years. So just something to consider if the board has thoughts one way or the other. Again, we can leave that open, so that does give you the flexibility going forward.
Can we make a motion at this point to approve for 2 years for new programs?
So you wouldn't need a motion a motion for the regulation itself.
You had talked about how it was open, but then we could also, you could do it case by case, or we could have a standard that says 2 years.
Okay. So we won't need a motion because that is right now just in the discussion items. But if that is what the board feels is appropriate, I can add that in for the language that will come back before the board at the next meeting. So I'm seeing a lot of head nods right now. Okay, so what I will do going forward is that I'll add another line in there that for initial programs for an initial review, and I will make it sound better than what I'm saying on the spot right now, but for those initial programs, their initial approval by the EPSB shall be for 2 years, and then they will have to come back, provide you that additional information to be approved further. Does that capture your thinking there, Dr. Vasquez-Hiley?
Please, thank you. I think to go 7 years without looking at a brand new program probably is that's like a bridge too far. So that sort of 2 years to, understand their successes and opportunities, I think is really a positive step.
Okay. And that is, I will make that change and bring that back before the board at the next meeting. Again, we will also circulate this to our Option 7 task force. Any of our, Option 7 providers, institutions get their feedback on this before we bring it back to you. With any regulation, once it is approved by the board and goes through that filing process, it is subject to public comments, and we accept those at that time. But we do like to address any public comments and get those before it comes back to you for action, so it can go as smoothly as possible through the legislative process. Are there any other sections that you all may have questions on or would like to address at this time? Okay, if not, Chair Mitchell, I will turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trueblood. We are now moving into our action items. These action items are presented to the board for action and will require a motion and a vote. Action item A is presented by Byron Darnell.
Yes, so this is a continuation of the conversation to a degree. Bringing back for the second time, this involves the revision of the guidelines for submitting an application to provide an alternative route to certification. This stems from the December 13th, 2021 meeting where it was agreed upon that a task force would convene to review the guidelines and make recommended changes specifically regarding measures of efficacy for the EPSB to include. We presented those initially in the work of the task force at the last meeting, and so we are bringing these back before the board to take action in terms of the changes recommended. So to highlight all of the entry provisions for an Option 7 alternate route still remain as they have been identified within the statute. However, the task force was in conversation to consider other measures of effectiveness. And so here are the specific recommendations to the board to consider as a revision to the application process. And that is recommend that applicants who are not currently accredited by the EPSB demonstrate partnerships with institutions of higher education accredited by the EPSB and school districts or cooperatives recognized by the Kentucky Department of Education. List specific data points the application is expected to address, including retention in the field, fill rate percentage, and satisfaction surveys. Require the application to identify how the provider, in collaboration with the employing district, will provide supports for struggling, unsuccessful candidates throughout the program. Define high-quality clinical partnerships by stating the clinical experience shall be a collaborative effort between the provider and the employing district. High-quality clinical experiences shall include supervised work with students and quality collaboration with mentors and colleagues. Require that the mentorship shall be based on the needs of the candidate and may address planning, modeling, and guidance as it relates to the Kentucky framework for teaching. This shall be a collaborative effort between the provider and the employing school district. And then finally, require applications to identify how instruction on technology is integrated into the program. A copy of the revised guidelines is included in the EPSB materials for your review. The final guidelines in the task force recommendation for a continuous review process for Option 7 programs will be included in the administrative regulation governing Option 7. And I believe with that, we need a motion to adopt the revised guidelines as delivered by the task force.
Thank you, Dr. Darnell. Do we have a motion?
It's Amanda Ellis. I make a motion to approve the revised guidelines for the alternative Option 7.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. Do I have a second?
Sarah
Amber
Weedman,
Snell, second.
the motion.
All right, I think Ms. Snell first with the second. The motion before the board is to approve the revisions of the guidelines laid out by Dr. Darnell there. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Barry,
Diane Barry, yes.
Amanda Ellis,
Amanda Ellis, yes.
Jacqueline Mayfield,
Jacqueline Mayfield, yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Sherry Powers,
Sherry Powers, yes.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Carmen Souter,
Carmen Souter, yes.
Julian Vasquez Halig,
Julian Vasquez Heilig, yes.
Timothy Wooster,
Timothy Wooster, yes.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, yes.
and Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you so much, and the motion passes. Next, we have action item B presented by Todd Davis.
Good morning, everyone. Action item B is in regards to Central Kentucky Educational Cooperatives Option 7 proposal that was deferred in previous meetings. And CKEC leaders have submitted a proposal in regards to the changes in the guidelines that were just adopted. And many of the recommendations were included in CKEC's previous, the original proposal. However, they did provide a table that clearly outlined where each of the task force recommendations were addressed or will be addressed in future. The proposal also has, or that table also has page numbers that these were provided to each of you in the document library. And at this time, in regards to this revised proposal to meet those guidelines, the EPSB staff recommends that that the board approve a conditional or provide conditional approval to allow the program to operate for the 22-23 school year, and then the program will be subject to continuous review that will be outlined in the future regulation that will be adopted.
Dr. Vasquez Heilig, I think you have a question.
Yes, I have a quick question. And this is a general question for all the motions, not necessarily this motion, this potential motion. Is the discussion period after the motion? Is that when that comes?
Yes, so a motion would be made, then seconded, and then a discussion on that particular motion. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Chair Mitchell, if I may, you also have the ability to ask questions of the presentation when formulating the motions. So while there is that discussion and question period after a motion has been made and before the vote, you also have that ability to go ahead and ask those questions before taking the motion, if that is the will of the board.
Okay, so we would ask that question of the staff and on the other folks. Is CKEC here or no?
They have been provided with a link to the meeting. If you have questions specifically for them, staff can ask them to go ahead and join this meeting as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Would you like them to join at this time?
No. This is just a general point of information. Thank you.
Yes.
Are there any questions from anyone else at this time? Okay, hearing none, I will need a motion.
Sherry Powers. I make a motion to approve the Option 7 Institute proposal from the Central Kentucky Educational Cooperative.
This is
Thank you.
Susan Reaper, I second.
All right, thank you, Dr. Powers and Ms. Reber. The motion before the board is to conditionally approve CKEC's Option 7 proposal for the 2022-2023 school year. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, yes.
Amanda Ellis,
Amanda Ellis, yes.
Jacqueline Mayfield,
Jacqueline Mayfield, yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Sherry Powers,
Sherry Powers, yes.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reaper, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Carmen Souter,
Carmen Souter, yes.
Julian Vasquez Heilig,
Julian Vasquez Heilig, yes.
Timothy Wooster,
Timothy Worcester, abstain.
Vice Chair Weidman,
Sarah Weidman, yes.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Chesser, and the motion passes. And congratulations to CKEC on their Option 7. Moving on to action item C, Mr. Davis.
Thank you. Action item C is like CKEC's proposal. I Teach Kentucky was also deferred in previous meetings, and they submitted a supplement to be included with their original proposal to demonstrate revisions to those revised guidelines. They provided responses to the revised recommended guidelines, as well as a plan for documentation for the district partnerships. Additionally, I Teach Kentucky supplement also provided documents in reference to current partnerships with institutes of higher education outside of Kentucky, such as Grand Canyon University, Texas Women's University, American College of Education. Again, a copy of the I Teach recent submission of that supplement was provided in the document library, and at this time, EPSB staff recommends that the EPSB should review and take action on I Teach's Option 7 Institute proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. I see a question, Dr. Vasquez Heilig.
Yes, I do have a question for I Teach.
Okay, is there an opportunity for us to get them on to talk with them?
Yes, Dr. Huber has a link to the meeting, and at this time I will ask her to join.
Thank you.
Dr. Huber has been admitted to the meeting. Dr. Huber, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Dr. Vasquez Heilig.
Okay, let me just pull this up. So thank you, Dr. Huber. This is Julian Vasquez Heilig, Dean of the College of Education at the University of Kentucky. Thank you for your public comments. I just wanted to ask you a question here. I'm looking at your performance indicators that you submitted to TEA or that TEA calculated. It says that your retention in program is 3,757 in 2016-17 and 3,995 in 2017-2018. Are those numbers correct?
I'm sorry, could you go back over those again?
Yes, of course. So I'm just referring for the board to the public comments that were submitted to EPSB. Looking at the graph at the top, it says Annual Performance Report Indicators TEC 21.05B. I'm looking at the fourth line down in that table, and in that table it says retained in program, and in the letter it says that this is the most recent data released by TEA, so I understand that aspect. So TEA has calculated 3,757 retained in program in 16-17 and 3,995 retained in program in 2017-2018. Are those numbers correct?
I believe so, without pulling that chart up right in front of me. If it's the TEA website, I do hold that those are good numbers.
Okay, that's my only question. Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions at this time from the board?
Thank you, Dr. Huber.
Sarah Weedman.
Good morning. Previously you had, and I'm looking at action item C. Is that correct to reference right now? Previously you had referenced that you were competency based. However, I noticed that in your documentation, that's not mentioned, but it is mentioned that you are self-paced. And I was wondering if you could provide further clarification for me if you guys are self-paced and that's the aspect of competency-based education that you are, or how are you defining competency-based with your program?
Well, thank you for asking that question. Also, I have our president, Andrew Roselle, in the room with me. When we say we are competency-based, iTeach has a rigorous curriculum that has been reviewed by CAPE. Candidates must demonstrate a mastery level of 80% on all assignments and assessments to demonstrate mastery of the content in that course, and then they are moved on to the next course. When we say self-paced, it is an enhancement to our competency-based program. There is not a requirement that a candidate must stay in a course for 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. As life happens, they may take a little bit longer in each course, but it is self-paced and not to a lockstep progression.
So to follow up on that, the competencies are demonstrating 80% on the assignments and assessments?
That is correct.
And your assessments are like they're tests online?
We have assessments that are test online. The assignments are then submitted also to their instructor. They are graded according to a very detailed rubric that is provided to the candidate before submission of any assignment.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Huber? All right.
Are we prepared for motions?
We are moving towards a motion. Yes, that is correct. So at this time, I will need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion, and there'll be time for discussion after the motion. I just want to clarify that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to deny I Teach Option 7 proposal.
Okay, thank you. And do I have a second?
Sarah Weedman, I second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Weedman. The motion before the board is to deny iTeach's Option 7 proposal. Now, is there any discussion?
Could I make some comments that I prepared?
Of course.
Okay, so bear with me here because I'm a data guy, okay? So, as a board member, it's my duty to read the public comments, and iTeach talks about removing barriers in its public comments. But if you look at the data that the EPSB is now asking for, it turns out that iTeach itself is a barrier. Failure appears to be their business model. If you look at their retention, 73% of the folks enrolled in iTeach can't pass qualifications and are still retained in iTeach. I had a chance to talk with the Texas State Board of Education member this morning. They relayed that this is not only iTeach's approach, but this is also Texas's approach to alternative certification. Even without this statewide model of failure, iTeach's retention rate is about 10% higher than the overall Texas state retention numbers. So do we really want the Texas and iTeach model of failure here in Kentucky? I think that's why the CKEC community-based, community-driven approach with a partner here in Kentucky is a better model and has potentially higher standards. The duty of the EPSB is to set standards for the children and the families of the state, and I'm glad that the new standards approved today empower the board to have the data necessary to make the decisions that were not previously required in these applications. Perhaps iTeach thought that we wouldn't look very carefully at the retention rate in their data. But we have to hold up the mirror to ourselves. So what does current Kentucky data look like? Based on the data that our team was able to gather at UK, here's what we know about the success in Kentucky related to teacher training. UK has an 81% first-time case entry practice rate, 92% first-time praxis 2 exit. The Commonwealth of Kentucky has a first-time praxis 2 exit that's also about 92%. Now, I understand that iTeach increases revenue for their business with their sky-high retention rate, but Kentucky should be in the business of a quality education that isn't actually a barrier to success in teacher education. There are 5,000 people, 5,440 people in Texas that express an interest in being teachers, but so few of those made it through the barriers. We should continue with a 92% success rate that we have here in Kentucky, rather than a 73% retention and program rate that we see in iTeach. That's a part of the Texas model. Thank you for allowing these comments. And my understanding is that at this point, the response from iTeach is closed. Is that correct?
I wanted to check with Cassie just to clarify that.
So at this time, there's been a motion before the board. There has been a second. There was discussion among board members. The board has the ability to vote on the motion. If the motion passes and there is a denial, then as with any other denial from this board, the program does have the ability to follow up with the board to resubmit or to even pursue an appeal of that denial.
And so just to clarify, as I think what Dr. Vasquez-Hiley was saying is that iTeach could not make this clarifying comments at this time, correct?
That is ultimately a board decision. However, there is no requirement to open it to them at this time.
Okay. Are there other discussions from board members?
So I second the motion. I've looked into this. I have a master's in competency-based education that is something I'm extremely passionate about, as well as performance-based assessment. And I am just not certain that how I have experience in defining competency-based education, I don't have the same definition as iTeach, and I have a very hard time approving this and supporting this as a competency-based education program. So that's why I agreed and second the motion for it to be denied. I don't think that it is appropriate to define it as a competency-based education program. Through my master's program, in competency-based education, it was a competency-based education program that I experienced myself, which means that we did not have assessments. Everything was demonstrated through skill sets, which involved a lot of recording in my classroom, student documentation, but never was I expected to pass an exam with an 80% success rate. It's all through demonstrating skill sets and competencies. So I'm just not sure that I'm on the same page with identifying this as a purely competency-based education program.
Thank you, Ms. Weidman. Are there any other discussions from board members? Hearing none, the motion before the board is to deny iTeach's option 7 proposal. So just to clarify for board members, if you accept that motion, you are saying that you deny that. If you vote no, you are going against that. And so just want to clarify what you're going to say. Accepting this is to say that you are denying the iTeach option 7 proposal. Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Barry,
Diane Barry, yes.
Amanda Ellis,
Amanda Ellis, yes.
Jacqueline Mayfield,
Jacqueline Mayfield, yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Sherry Powers,
Sherry Powers, yes.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Carmen Souter,
Carmen Souter, yes.
Julian Vasquez Halle,
Julian Vasquez Heilig, yes.
Timothy Wooster,
Timothy Worcester, yes.
Vice Chair Weidman,
Sarah Weidman, yes.
and Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Chesser. And the motion passes, and the iTeach option 7 proposal is denied. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Next, we have action item D presented by Cassie Trueblood.
Thank you very much. Action item D is the last of your action items on today's agenda. It is on page 124 of the agenda book. And this is a request to allow reissuance of emergency certification for the 2022-2023 school year. The regulation on emergency teaching certification 16 KAR 2120 only allows issuance of a subsequent emergency certification if the first emergency was issued after February 15th of the school year, or if it was issued for less than 50% of the person's class schedule. For the last 2 school years, the EPSB has approved a waiver of these portions of the regulation to allow second issuance of emergency certification. School and district leaders reported that this additional flexibility has been very beneficial and have requested that it continue for the upcoming school year. Additionally, House Bill 277, which was signed by the governor on Friday, which Dr. Darnell also mentioned in his report, Section 2 of that bill allows all emergency certificate holders for the current school year to be eligible to renew their emergency teaching certificate for next school year. This waiver would build upon that, and it would allow anyone that has previously been issued an emergency teaching certificate, so not just those that had the emergency teaching certificate last year, but even those that had an emergency certificate the previous school year would have the ability to be issued another emergency teaching certificate, unless, of course, there were character and fitness issues or KRS 120 applied and would prevent that. Are there any questions about this waiver? Again, in addition to the blanket waivers, even prior to COVID, the board had been waiving this on a case-by-case basis due to teacher shortages and trying to at least retain people who have had some type of experience on an emergency certificate in the classroom. And Chair Mitchell, I believe you're muted.
Thanks. Are there any questions at this time for Ms. Trueblood? All right, thank you, Ms. Trueblood. Is there a motion on the floor?
This is Susan. I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, thank you, Ms. Reber. Is there a second?
Amber Snell, second.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. The motion before the board is to approve the waiver for reissuance of emergency certification. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, yes.
Amanda Ellis,
Amanda Ellis, yes.
Jacqueline Mayfield,
Jacqueline Mayfield, yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Sherry Powers,
Sherry Powers, yes.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Carmen Souter,
Carmen Souter, yes.
Julian Vasquez Heilig,
Julian Vasquez Heilig, yes.
Timothy Wooster,
Timothy Wooster, yes.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, yes.
and Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Chesser, and the motion passes. The board is now ready to review waiver request KRS 1610281N provides that the board has the authority to waive its administrative regulations when a request is submitted by an applicant for certification, a post-secondary institution, or a superintendent of a local school board. When requesting a waiver, the requesting party must submit to the board a written request along with appropriate justification for the waiver. EPSB staff reviewed the waivers with the EPSB's waiver committee during an open meeting immediately prior to this meeting, and the waiver committee formulated recommendations. Brandon Herod and Crystal Horde will present the waiver request to the full board, and the waiver committee chair, Dr. Sherry Powers, will present the committee's recommendation for final action. Starting with waiver A presented by Brandon Herod.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell, and good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Waiver A was submitted by Georgetown College. It is a request to waive a portion of 16 KAR 5040 that requires that student teachers reach the minimum 70 full days in the instructional setting. Due to closures in the district related to COVID-19, as well as bad weather or inclement weather closures, several students were unable to reach the 70, or were not on track to reach the 70 days. Georgetown College has submitted a list of 9 students that will be coming short of that 70-day requirement. They also submitted in their follow-up letter that they have provided online opportunities such as Google Classroom, Zoom class meetings, as well as encouraging student teachers to work with cooperating teachers when doing NTI work to minimize the number of days. Several of those students are only needing 1 to 2 days waived, with the max being 10 days.
All right. And Dr. Powers, what is the waiver committee's recommendation?
The waiver committee reviewed the waiver request and supporting documentation that was submitted by Georgetown College. The committee found exceptional circumstances justifying the waiver. Therefore, the committee recommends that the EPSB grant the waiver.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. This item is on the agenda for action, and I will need a motion.
Carmen Souter makes a motion to pass.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Souter. Do I have a second?
Sarah Weedman, I second the motion.
Thank you, Vice Chair Weedman. The motion before the board is to approve 16 KAR 5040, request to waive student teacher days due to district school closures for Georgetown College. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, yes.
Amanda Ellis,
Amanda Ellis, yes.
Jacqueline Mayfield,
Jacqueline Mayfield, yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Sherry Powers,
Sherry Powers, yes.
Susan Reber, Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Carmen Souter,
Carmen Souter, yes.
Julian Vasquez Halig,
Julian Vasquez Heilig, yes.
Timothy Wooster,
Timothy Wooster, yes.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, yes.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, and the motion passes. Next, we have waiver B.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. Waiver B is requested by Dr. Glenn Beatty with Spalding University on behalf of Nicole Clark. This is a waiver of the renewal requirement in 16 KAR 3060, which is the school counseling regulation. Ms. Clark completed the full standard counseling program in 2016 when she graduated from that program. However, she's been working as a school resource officer, or sorry, a youth services officer within her school district, which is not a certified position requiring the counseling certificate. Spalding has made a change to their program since Dr. Beatty took it over, in which they now don't recommend the candidate, or they only recommend the candidate when they finish the initial 33-hour program. Ms. Clark, however, has already finished the 33-hour program plus the additional 6 hours required in the standard program. And they are requesting that the board allow her to use those 6 hours already completed in order to renew her provisional counseling certificate for another 5 years.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Dr. Powers, what is the waiver committee's recommendation?
The waiver committee reviewed the waiver request submitted by Spalding University. The committee found exceptional circumstances justifying the waiver. Therefore, the committee recommends that EPSB grant the waiver.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a motion?
Diane Berry, motion.
Thank you, Ms. Berry. Is there a second?
Amber Snell, second.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. The motion before the board is to approve the 16 KAR 3060 request to allow coursework completed towards the standard counseling program to qualify for renewal of the provisional school counselor certificate for Nicole Clark. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, yes.
Amanda Ellis,
Amanda Ellis, yes.
Jacqueline Mayfield,
Jacqueline Mayfield, yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Sherry Powers,
Sherry Powers, yes.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Carmen Souter,
Carmen Souter, yes.
Julian Vasquez Halig,
Julian Vasquez Heilig, yes.
Timothy Wooster,
Timothy Wooster, yes.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, yes.
and Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Chesser, and the motion passes. Now moving on to waiver C.
Thank you. Waiver C is requested by Mr. Corey Hatfield. He is requesting a waiver of 16 KAR 3060, again, which is the counseling regulation. Mr. Hatfield completed a master's degree in school counseling at Northern Kentucky University in 2017. And then in 2021, he completed the additional coursework required for the standard program. He still lacks the 2 years of provisionally certified school counseling experience because he's not been employed in a district. Instead, Mr. Hatfield has been employed for the past 4 years as a social and emotional learning program specialist with a nonprofit, the Character Effect program based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. His work experience in that role has him working directly with elementary schools within the Erlanger-Ellesmere Independent School District. And much of the work that he has done based on the documents that you all were provided align with what a school counselor would be doing. So Mr. Hatfield is requesting that his experience in that role will be accepted as the 2 years of provisionally certified school counseling experience.
Thank you, Ms. Hord. Dr. Powers, what is the recommendation from the waiver committee?
The waiver committee reviewed the waiver request and supporting documentation submitted by the applicant. The committee found exceptional circumstances justifying the waiver. Therefore, the committee recommends that the EPSB grant the waiver.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. At this time, I'll need a motion.
Carmen Souter, I make a motion.
Thank you, Dr. Souter, or Ms. Souter. Do I have a second?
Diane Berry, second.
Thank you, Ms. Berry. The motion before the board is to approve 16 KAR 3060, request to allow other experience to meet employment experience as a provisionally certified school counselor for Corey Hatfield. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, yes.
Amanda Ellis,
Amanda Ellis, yes.
Jacqueline Mayfield,
Jacqueline Mayfield, yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Sherry Powers,
Sherry Powers, yes.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Carmen Souter,
Carmen Souter, yes.
Julian Vasquez Hiley,
Julian Vasquez Hiley, yes.
Timothy Wooster,
Timothy Wooster, yes.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, yes.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Chesser, and the motion passes. At this time, we'll move on to waiver D.
Thank you. Waiver D is requested by Miss Elizabeth Cassius Serrano. She is requesting a waiver of 16 KAR 4030, which is the out-of-state prepared educator regulation. Miss Serrano is a JCPS teacher. She is she's certified in elementary. She's a resident of Kentucky, but she went across the river and she completed an endorsement program for ESL at Indiana University Southeast. She's completed the program requirements and we've received a recommendation for program completion from Indiana. And she's also passed the Kentucky required Praxis 2 assessment for ESL. However, she has not obtained the Indiana certificate based on 4030 requirements. So she is requesting a waiver of that requirement so she can add the ESL certificate or the ESL endorsement to her Kentucky certification.
Thank you, Ms. Hord. Dr. Powers, what is the recommendation?
The waiver committee reviewed the waiver request submitted by the applicant. The committee found exceptional circumstances justifying the waiver. Therefore, the committee recommends that the EPSB grant the waiver.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. At this time, I will need a motion.
Carmen Souter, I make a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Souter. Do I have a second?
Amber Snell, second.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. At at this time, the motion before the board is 16K, or to approve 16 KAR 4030, request to waive equivalent certification requirement for out-of-state prepared educator Elizabeth Cassius Serrano. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, yes.
Amanda Ellis,
Amanda Ellis, yes.
Jacqueline Mayfield,
Jacqueline Mayfield, yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Sherry Powers,
Sherry Powers, yes.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Carmen Souter,
Carmen Souter, yes.
Julian Vasquez Halig,
Julian Vasquez Heilig, yes.
Timothy Wooster,
Timothy Wooster, yes.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, recuse.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Chesser, and the motion passes. And last up, we have waiver E.
Thank you. Waiver E is requested by Miss Yolanda Walker. She's requesting a waiver of the test recency requirement of 5 years, as found in 16 KAR 6010. Ms. Walker completed a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary early childhood education, or IECE, at Campbellsville in 2012. She passed her IECE assessment in June of 2012. At that time, she was employed as a classified instructional aide in JCPS. She's remained in that position. She did not want to leave her classified position and her seniority that she held at that time due to the tenuous job market. Obviously, things have changed and there's not enough teachers in that area now, as well as many other areas. She wants to be able to apply for a certified position now. However, her test score on file with us has exceeded the 5 years. ETS does make scores reportable for 10 years, and her score is still within the 10-year reporting timeline by ETS. So she is asking or requesting that the EPSB grant the waiver so that she can be issued the IECE credential based on her 2012 test.
Thank you, Ms. Hord. Dr. Powers, what is the recommendation?
The waiver committee reviewed the waiver request and supporting documentation submitted by the applicant. The committee found exceptional circumstances justifying the waiver. Therefore, the committee recommends that the EPSB grant the waiver.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. At this time, is there a motion?
Carmen Souter, I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Souter. Is there a second?
Jacqueline Mayfield, second. Oh.
I think I heard Ms. Mayfield for the second. The motion before the board is to approve 16 KAR 6010, request to waive 5-year test recency requirement for Yolanda Walker. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, yes.
Amanda Ellis,
Amanda Ellis, yes.
Jacqueline Mayfield,
Jacqueline Mayfield, yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Sherry Powers,
Sherry Powers, yes.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Carmen Souter,
Carmen Souter, yes.
Julian Vasquez Halig,
Julian Vasquez Heilig, yes.
Timothy Wooster,
Timothy Wooster, yes.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, yes.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Chesser, and the motion passes. I just want to thank Dr. Powers and the waiver committee, along with Mr. Herod and Ms. Hord, for all of your work. At this time, I'll now open the floor to any board member for board comments. Does anyone have anything they wish to share? Dr. Vasquez-Heilig.
Thank you. After we passed the emergency certification waiver, I had some faculty reach out to me and say, I hope that the Commonwealth can articulate a plan so we can move those educators to certification. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think I saw Vice Chair Weidman, your hand raised.
Yes, I just wanted to share. I'm in JCPS, and it's very rare that I get to go and see other parts of the state. But I got the chance to go to Fleming County High School about 2 weeks ago, and I just wanted to share in case anyone is in that area or gets the opportunity to go. I was blown away at what they are doing there and all of the incredible students that I got to talk to. And the programs that they have going on there. I've never seen anything like that, especially from an elementary perspective. I love being able to go into high schools and expand my knowledge, and good practice is good practice all around. And so I was just thrilled and blown away by my experience there. So I wanted to give them a little shout out and to keep on keeping on because it was great.
Thank you. Any other comments from anyone?
Can I do one more?
Of course.
You know, our folks, UK, were really looking forward to going over to Simmons this week and spending some time with their president as they're gearing up their teacher ed programs. And I just think it's really great practice. The deans of the public colleges of education, we meet very, very often. And that's one of the things that I really love about Kentucky is the collaborative spirit that we have in this state. So look forward to being in Louisville this next week. Did I get that right? Louisville? This next week to spend time with the educators at Simmons.
Dr. Vasquez-Heilig, it's as if you have marbles in your mouth. You go like you have a mouthful of marbles to say Louisville, Louisville.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other comments at this time? Well, thank you for those. And at this time, I believe we are ready to go into closed session pursuant to KRS 61810(1)C and J to conduct a character and fitness review and to review potential actions relating to complaints and reports. The board will also review pending litigation. I will need a motion to go into closed session.
I make a
Jacqueline
motion to
Mayfield.
go in. Sorry, Meredith Pittman, second the motion for closed session.
Okay, so Ms. Mayfield with the motion and Ms. Pittman for the second. The motion now before the board is a motion to go into closed session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Diane Berry,
Diane Berry, yes.
Amanda Ellis,
Amanda Ellis, yes.
Jacqueline Mayfield,
Jacqueline Mayfield, yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Sherry Powers,
Sherry Powers, yes.
Susan Reber,
Susan Rebert, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Carmen Souter,
Carmen Souter, yes.
Julian Vasquez-Heilig,
Julian Vasquez-Heilig, yes.
Timothy Wooster,
Timothy Wooster, yes.
Vice Chair Weidman,
Sarah Weidman, yes.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Chesser, and the motion passes. So now we're ready to move into closed session. I'll let our at this time, I will need a motion to go into open session. Do I have a motion?
I make motion.
All
Amber
right,
Snell, second.
Ms. Berry, and second with Ms. Snell. The motion before the board is a motion to go back into open session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, we are now back in open session. At this time, we will vote on those items discussed during closed session. All right. For character and fitness, 1 through 5, approve. On CA4 online character and fitness, 1, approve, 2, defer, 3 through 17, approve, 18, defer, 19, approve. On agreed orders, 1 through 3, accept, 4, reject, 5 through 18, accept. Findings of fact, conclusions of law, recommended orders, and appeal rights. For number 1, we accepted on finding of facts, accept on conclusions of law, and accept on recommended orders. On educator cases, 1 through 4, admonish, 5, attorney review, 6, admonish, 7 through 11, attorney review, 12, defer for training, educator ethics training, 13 through 15, admonish, 16 through 18, attorney review, 19, defer for training, district curriculum and instruction requirements training, 20 and 21, attorney review, 22, defer for training, special education training, 23, attorney review, 24, defer for training, educator ethics training, 25, defer for training, classroom management training, 26, attorney review, 27, defer for training, administration code training, 28, dismiss with prejudice, 29 through 31, defer for training, admin code training, 32 through 35, dismiss with prejudice, 36, defer for training, admin code training, 37 through 40, dismiss with prejudice, 41 through 43, attorney review, 44, defer for training, classroom management training, 45, defer for training, KDE approved training on the topic of certification and hiring of school personnel, 46, refer to hearing, 47, no further action, 48 and 49, refer to hearing, 50 through 52, dismiss with prejudice, 53 and 54, attorney review, 55 through 66, dismiss with prejudice. All right. And if Ms. Sharp will call the roll for members to vote.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. Diane Berry.
Diane Berry, approve all.
Eli Edwards.
Eli Edwards, yes on all.
Amanda Ellis.
Amanda Ellis, yes for all.
Jacqueline Mayfield.
Jacqueline Mayfield, yes on all.
Meredith Pittman.
Meredith Pittman, yes for all.
Sherry Powers.
Sherry Powers, yes for all.
Susan Reber.
Susan Reber, yes for all.
Amber Snell.
Amber Snell, approve for all.
Carmen Souter.
Carmen Souter, yes for all.
Vice Chair Weedman.
Sarah Weedman, approve on all.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, approve on all.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. And it passes there. At this time, I will need a motion to adjourn.
Elijah Edwards, motion to adjourn.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
Jacqueline Mayfield, second.
Thank you, Ms. Mayfield. The motion before the board is a motion to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sharp, please call the roll.
Diane Berry.
Diane Barry, yes.
Eli Edwards,
Eli Edwards, yes.
Amanda Ellis,
Amanda Ellis, yes.
Jacqueline Mayfield,
Jacqueline Mayfield, yes.
Meredith Pittman,
Meredith Pittman, yes.
Sherry Powers,
Sherry Powers, yes.
Susan Reber,
Susan Reber, yes.
Amber Snell,
Amber Snell, yes.
Carmen Souter,
Carmen Souter, yes.
Vice Chair Weedman,
Sarah Weedman, yes.
Chair Mitchell.
Justin Mitchell, yes.
Voting is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp, and we are now adjourned.